Kartamisra and not Kartamisra, which is the name given to me by my spiritual master. So I just wanted to make sure, because now it's going all over the net that my name is Kartamisra and not Kartamisra. So thank you. I'm sure whoever Kartamisra is, they're a wonderful devotee, but that's not my name. So we'll start. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Kṛṣṇa Hare Kṛṣṇa 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Kṛṣṇa Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jai Vishnu Pṛthā Paramahamsa Bhagavad Asat Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pṛthā Paramahamsa Bhagavad Asat Srimad His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Kitai, Snamaveta Bhakta Vrinda Kitai, Gauda Pemanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Kartik Mas Ki Jai. So we are in the last verse of chapter 17, the verses 28. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Aśraddhayā hutam dattam. Tapas taptam kṛtam chayat. Asad ucyate pārtha. Nachata pretya no iha. Aśraddhayā hutam dattam. Tapas taptam kṛtam chayat. Asad ucyate pārtha. Nachata pretya no iha. Aśraddhayā hutam dattam. Tapas taptam kṛtam chayat. Asad ucyate pārtha. Nachata pretya no iha. Oh, yeah. Hutam. Asad ucyate pārtha. Vaishnavis. Aśraddhayā hutaṁ dattam. Word for word. Aśraddhayā, without faith. Hutam, offered in sacrifice. Dattam, given. Tapaḥ, penance. Taptam, executed. Kṛtam, performed. Cha, also. Yat, that which. Asat, false. Iti, thus. Ucyate is said to be. Pṛthā, O son of Pṛthā. Na, never. Cha, also. Tat, that. Pretya, after death. Na, you. Nor. Iha, in this life. Translation and purport by His Very Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. Anything done as sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme, O son of Pṛthā, is impermanent. It is called asad and is useless, both in this life and the next. Please repeat. Anything done as sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme, O son of Pṛthā, is impermanent. It is called asat and is useless both in this life and the next. Purport. Anything done without the transcendental objective, whether it be sacrifice, charity, or penance, is useless. Therefore, in this verse, it is declared that such activities are abominable. Everything should be done for the Supreme in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Without such faith and without the proper guidance, there can never be any fruit. In all the Vedic in all the Vedic scriptures, faith in the Supreme is advised. In the pursuit of all Vedic instructions, the ultimate goal is the understanding of Kṛṣṇa. No one can obtain success without following this principle. Therefore, the best course is to work from the very beginning in Kṛṣṇa consciousness under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. That is the way to make everything successful. In the conditional state, people are attracted to worshiping demigods, ghosts, or yakshas, like Kuvara. The mode of goodness is better than the modes of passion and ignorance, but one who takes directly to Kṛṣṇa consciousness is transcendental to all three modes of material nature. Although there is a process of gradual elevation, if one, by the association of pure devotees, takes directly to Kṛṣṇa consciousness, that is the best way, and that is recommended in this chapter. To achieve success in this way, one must first find the proper spiritual master and receive training under his direction. Then one can achieve faith in the Supreme. When that faith matures, in course of time, it is called love of God. This love is the ultimate goal of the living entities. One should therefore take to Kṛṣṇa consciousness directly. That is the message of this 17th chapter. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 17th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, in the matter of the divisions of faith. Om Gena Timarandasha Gena Gena Salakaya Chaksomilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaisnavta Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Kṛṣṇa Caitanya Devam Sri Radha Kṛṣṇa Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vihamscha E Kṛṣṇa Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishubhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanta Kapas Darubias Cha Kripa Sindhu Be'eva Cha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Shri Kṛṣṇa Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in the previous chapter, Kṛṣṇa is explaining to Arjuna the two extremes of people in the world, and that is the divine persons and the demoniac persons. So we know, when we went through that chapter, so we know what are the qualities of these two individuals, these two different groups of people. But here, Kṛṣṇa is explaining those ones in the middle. So with the divine, we read about all the qualities that the divine persons of their character. And in the demoniac, these people, they don't know what is proper to do and what is not proper to do. So I'm going to talk a little bit about faith. So in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, in chapter 2, text 41, faith is unflinching belief in something sublime, or the supreme, belief in the supreme. And usually faith is commonly connected with religion. So everyone who lives in the material world has some kind of faith. It might not be in a religious way, but in our everyday life, we have to have faith. For instance, if you're putting money in the bank, you have faith that the money is going to be there when you need it. You know, that the bank is not going to fail, or your funds are going to be absconded, somebody's going to take your funds. You have faith. You go every day and you collect money and you just think, oh, it's going to be there. That's faith. And then also, other examples are when you are employed. You work. Now, in India, they're suggesting people work 70 hours a week. 70 hours, that's a lot of work. That's hard work. But at the end of that work, you're thinking you're going to get paid. So you work ahead of time. So have faith at the end of the week that you're going to get your money. At one point, I was living in Washington, D.C., and you think that when you work for the government, everybody thinks if you work for the government, everything's going to be guaranteed. Well, this is the government, so I know I'm going to get my money. But not too long ago, the legislature, the whole government shut down in Washington, and nobody got paid for anything. They had to go a couple of months without any money whatsoever. The government, I think there was some blockage in some legislation or whatever happened, and they just shut down the government. And so those people who had faith that they were going to get their money didn't get their money, and they were in dire distress. Another example is, if you go to a barber and you get shaved, you're trusting that the barber is not going to slit your neck while he's using, because it's very sharp. You have faith, okay, this person I can trust, he's going to do a nice job and not injure me. So everybody has some kind of faith in this world about something. Another thing that's been happening is, well, usually you pay for the flight ahead of time. You're going on a trip, you pay for the flight. So you expect that, you're going to be able to get on a plane, you're going to be able to reach your destination. But nowadays we see what's happening is flights are getting canceled. People have to have a fight with the airlines to find out when they can go, if they can get their money back, such things like that. But still, we have faith. We do it every day. Whenever we go somewhere, we pay them ahead of time. So that's faith in the material condition of life. And this type of faith, of course, will not get you any spiritual realization. Because when things fall apart, and then you become frustrated, you know. So in this chapter, Kṛṣṇa is explaining the different kinds of faith, the divisions of faith, and the different type of activities that persons who have a certain kind of faith in the modes, the material modes. They have faith either in the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, or the mode of ignorance. So this chapter, first there's Arjuna's inquiry about what happens to those persons. You know, he's inquiring about, you know, of those who have some faith, but it's not based on scriptures. So all those examples I gave you is faith not based on scriptures. They're not following any scriptures. As living entities, we come into this world with a manual. Kṛṣṇa, we come into the world, but Kṛṣṇa has a manual that every living entity is supposed to follow. And that manual is some religious process. You have to believe in the Lord. He's giving you all these religious practices to follow so you can gradually become elevated into at least being a human. We're practicing just so we can become human, and then that practice will bring us to developing more divine qualities and eventually getting love of Godhead and going back to Godhead. So that is in chapter 1 where Arjuna's inquiry. And then from 2 to 7, Kṛṣṇa is describing the three modes. What are the three modes and how people work, how they worship. So from verses 8 through 10, Kṛṣṇa describes the foods in the three modes. And I'm just doing a review because it's the last verse, and sometimes from the first verse to the last verse, maybe we don't recall exactly what was covered. So it's nice to have a little review. At least for me, I need to have a review so I can remember what was discussed, what Kṛṣṇa gave us to remember. And then in verses 11 through 13, he talks about the sacrifices in the three modes. So all living entities are under the three modes, and they work in those different modes. They do activities in those different modes. So in verses 14 through 16, he's describing the three types of austerities. And in 17 to 19, he's talking about austerity in the three modes. And then in chapters 20 to 22, he's talking about charity in the three modes. And the conclusion in chapters 23 through 28 is Om Tat Sat. And if we're reading the Gita regularly, I'm trying to, so I can understand more, because the more you read it, the more you see things that you don't remember reading before. So, so that Om Tat Sat indicates the supreme absolute truth, Vishnu. Any sacrifice, charity, or austerity done without faith in the supreme is impermanent and asat. So how do we get faith? It is said in the chapter that I talked about the type of faith that they have in the material world, but how do we get the faith? How do we develop the faith? So it's said in the chapter that we have to surrender to a spiritual master. And I remember I was getting ready to say that in the end of every chapter, Kṛṣṇa explains different types of practice, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, so many different types. But if you read in the end of every chapter, the conclusion is always to worship the Supreme Person of Godhead. It identifies Him, and it tells us what we need to do in relationship to Him. That's sambandha, abhidheya, and prayojana. So it's all contained in the Gita, how we make progress and how we develop faith. And the first thing is to accept a spiritual master who delivers us from our material contamination. So we know that Kṛṣṇa says, let me find it. Oh yes, he says, Yad karosi yad anashni, yad juhosi, didati yad. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever you give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. And he also says that he is the only enjoyer. And he's the enjoyer of all our sacrifice. So that's our goal, is whatever we're doing is to please the Lord. So we see that Arjuna's sacrifice was to follow the instructions of Kṛṣṇa. After he accepted Kṛṣṇa as the spiritual master, then he surrendered. And so this is his sacrifice. He had to kill all his family members that he saw when Kṛṣṇa brought him to the middle of the battlefield. But there's nothing is ever bad that Kṛṣṇa asks us to do. That's why we have to have faith in his words and have faith in his direction of our life. So we can obtain success. That's how we can obtain success, to follow the orders of the spiritual master. Because we know in the chapter of I think it's 434, to surrender to a spiritual master and inquire from him submissively, because he has seen the truth. So submissive is the primary word. We have to be humble, not that we have to ask him in a challenging mood. We have to ask him in a submissive mood. And also, we have to have faith that whatever Kṛṣṇa is saying, that his promises, we have to trust in what he says in his word. One of the challenges for me before I surrendered to my spiritual master was the one verse that because I was a Christian at the time, And I didn't really understand everything before then. He wasn't my spiritual master at the time, but I didn't understand all he was saying, explaining to me. But we know in 1866, that verse, you give up all other engagements and you surrender to me and I shall give you protection. So for me, I kept reading that one over and over again, trying to understand it, because I was reluctant to give. I wanted to understand that Kṛṣṇa was a person. And I believed in God as a person, but because I didn't really understand everything that my Guru Maharaj was saying, then I was reluctant to surrender. So this verse was very important to me in my surrendering to my spiritual master, because he's saying, that he shall give you all protection. And also in all the scriptures, even I was saying in the Bhagavad Gita, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, the end of every chapter talks about Kṛṣṇa. There's one whose description, when he's describing Kṛṣṇa, that I really liked. I'll see if I can find it. I have so many notes, Kṛṣṇa. Anyway, as I was reading it, I was thinking, all the scholars and those so-called very educated persons, I'm wondering how they can read the Gita without coming to the conclusion, because it's so obvious in the Gita about who is the Supreme Personality. I was thinking of a pastime with Malati. Malati is a Prabhupada disciple, and she had a daughter by the name of Saraswati. And Saraswati was a really good preacher, even though she was only 5. So she would tell everybody, when she went up to them and say, do you know who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Do you know who is Kṛṣṇa? And then they would say no, and then she would preach to them. She would say, Kṛṣṇa is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you should worship him. So that's preaching. Even a 5-year-old can preach, to help others understand that Kṛṣṇa is the summum bonum. He's the supreme cause, the cause of all causes. He's the most worshipable one. And I also was thinking about the mode of goodness. We all have to at least come to the mode of goodness. That's what I've heard from the pure devotees. At least come to the mode of goodness, but then still we need to, progress further into the transcendental realm with our knowledge, not just the mode of goodness, although that's we have to get there first and not become in the mode of passion or the mode of ignorance. So the association with a pure devotee is the direct path to Kṛṣṇa consciousness, because all the others that are explained in the Gita, it's a slow process, a very slow process. It's like taking the stairs. Prabhupada would compare it to taking the stairs. You take the stairs. Suppose you live on the 90th floor. That's going to be a long haul. So if we take the elevator, and our spiritual master is the elevator, he's the boat captain who takes us across this ocean of material existence and reveals to us the spiritual world. So all we need to do is follow his instructions. He'll reveal all the knowledge that we need and help elevate us so that we can go back home, back to Godhead. So I'll just say something, read something about the conclusion of Om Tat Sat. These three words indicate the Supreme Absolute Truth, Vishnu, and are chanted by Brahmanas during sacrifices for the satisfaction of the Supreme. Om is always chanted in the beginning by those who perform sacrifice, charity, and austerity in accordance with scriptural regulations to attain the Supreme. So we also know that when we mark our bodies with tilak, the first word we say when we're putting it on ahead of the name is Om. And then Tat is uttered by persons aspiring for liberation from material entanglement. It performs sacrifice, austerity, and charity without desiring fruitive results. So when we serve Kṛṣṇa, we want to come to the highest platform of not expecting Kṛṣṇa to give us anything. We want to always give something to Kṛṣṇa. It's like when you have deities, the first thing you think about is my Lord hungry? You want to feed him, you want to dress him, you want to take care of him. When you are not on schedule, you're concerned about, I need to take care of the Lord, you think about him all the time, because you need to get back to take care of the Lord. So that's pleasing to the Lord. So Sat is used to indicate the absolute truth and also the knower or seeker of absolute truth and the performer of sacrifice. All auspicious works of sacrifice, austerity, and charity are performed to please the Supreme Person. Any work dedicated to the Lord is permanent and it's called Sat. So I'll end here and I'm open for any comments, questions, criticisms, corrections, additions, realizations. No inquiry. Someone has a question? The mic. I can't hear you from here. The mic. We need the mic. I don't know where it is. Can you come up front a little bit or talk loud? Maybe somebody can. What's the question, Prabhu? Is it? Yes. But when we say I was speaking of when we put tilak on, we begin with Om, but we also personalize it. So we say Om Narayana Namaha, Om Madhava Namaha, Om Govinda Namaha. So we just don't say Om by itself. We also include the personal aspect of the Lord. So it's Om Govinda Namaha, Om Madhava Namaha, Om Narayana Namaha, Om Vishnu Namaha, Om, somebody help me. Madhusudana Namaha. So we call his personal names. We don't just say Om. But Om by itself is the impersonal aspect of the Lord. You're right. Is that okay? Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much for attending the Bhagavad Gita class. And I wish you all a happy Kartik. It's so beautiful. Jai. Hare Krishna.